My former best friends threatened to end our 13-year friendship unless I quit medical school because they thought I was looking down on them and acting like I'm better than everyone else. But the real reason was shocking. Yesterday morning at our regular coffee meetup, my two closest friends from high school cornered me with the most ridiculous demand I've ever heard. Phoebe, 27F, and Maya, 28F, sat across from me at our usual table and told me I needed to drop out of medical school immediately or they would never speak to me again. I'm Emma, 27F, and I've been working toward becoming a doctor for the past 4 years. The whole thing started over pancakes and ended with me walking out of the diner while they shouted after me. Let me back up and explain how we got here. Phoebe, Maya, and I have been friends since we were 14. We met in 9th grade when we all got detention for talking during a math test. Phoebe was the funny one who could make anyone laugh, even the strictest teachers. Maya was always the smartest in our group, getting straight A's without even trying. I was somewhere in the middle, working hard for decent grades but never really standing out. After high school, our paths went in different directions. Phoebe got pregnant at 19 with her boyfriend Jake. She dropped out of community college to take care of the baby. Jake stuck around for about 2 years before he decided fatherhood wasn't for him and moved back to his parents' house 3 states away. Phoebe moved back in with her mom and started working at a daycare center. She always said she loved working with kids anyway, so it worked out. Maya finished her associate degree in business and got a job at a local insurance company. She worked her way up to a supervisor position and seems happy enough with her routine. She bought a small house last year and got engaged to her boyfriend of 5 years. They're planning a wedding for next spring. My journey was different. I struggled through community college because I had some learning difficulties that nobody caught in high school. I failed chemistry twice and almost gave up on the idea of becoming a doctor. My mom convinced me to get tested for learning disabilities when I was 21. Turns out I had been dealing with a processing disorder my whole life. Once I learned some strategies to work around it, everything became easier. I transferred to a 4-year university and finished my bachelor's degree in biology. It took me an extra year because I had to retake some classes, but I graduated with a 3.6 GPA. Then I spent 2 years studying for the MCAT while working as a medical assistant at a local clinic. I took the test 3 times before I got a score good enough for medical school. When I finally got accepted to the state medical school, I thought my friends would be excited for me. They both came to my acceptance party and seemed genuinely happy. Phoebe even made a joke about me becoming rich and famous so I could support them in their old age. Maya bought me a stethoscope as a congratulations gift. That was 3 years ago. I'm now in my 4th year of medical school, doing rotations at the hospital. The work is intense, but I love it. I'm thinking about specializing in pediatrics because I enjoy working with children and their families. We've maintained our friendship throughout all these years by meeting every other Saturday morning at Murphy's Diner on Main Street. It's been our tradition since we were 18. We catch up on our lives, complain about work, and usually end up laughing about something stupid we did in high school. Yesterday started like any other Saturday. I got to Murphy's at 9 in the morning and ordered my usual coffee and wheat toast. Phoebe arrived a few minutes later, looking tired. Her son Tyler is now 8 and plays Little League Baseball, which means she spends most weekends driving him to games or practices. Maya showed up right on time at 9:15, wearing her weekend uniform of yoga pants and an oversized sweater. We ordered our food and started talking about normal things. Maya told us about a bridesmaid dress shopping trip that went horribly wrong. Phoebe complained about Tyler's baseball coach who keeps scheduling extra practices. I mentioned that I was starting my surgery rotation next week and was nervous about it. That's when the mood shifted. Phoebe put down her fork and looked at Maya. Maya nodded like they had planned this moment. Phoebe cleared her throat and said I needed to quit medical school. I laughed at first because I thought she was joking. But when I looked at their faces, I realized they were completely serious. Maya leaned forward and said they had been talking about this for months. She said they were worried I was going to become arrogant and think I was better than them once I became a doctor. I asked them what they meant. Phoebe said I had already started acting different. She claimed I used big medical words on purpose to make them feel stupid. Maya agreed and said I always talked about how hard medical school was, like I was trying to make them feel bad about their choices. I told them I had never done any of those things on purpose. When I used medical terms, it was because that's the language I'm learning to speak every day. When I talked about school being difficult, I was just sharing what was happening in my life, the same way they shared stories about work or family. Phoebe shook her head and said that wasn't the point. She said she could see me changing into someone who looked down on people without college degrees. Maya added that she was afraid our friendship would become fake once I started making doctor money and hanging around other doctors. I asked them for specific examples of when I had made them feel bad or acted superior. They couldn't give me any. Phoebe just kept saying she could feel it happening. Maya said it was obvious from the way I carried myself now. The conversation got more heated when Maya said I should consider whether becoming a doctor was worth losing my oldest friends. She said real friends would support each other instead of trying to make each other feel small. Phoebe nodded and said if I really cared about our friendship, I would find a different career path. I pointed out that I had been working toward this goal for years. I had taken out massive student loans and spent countless hours studying. I was less than 2 years away from graduating. The idea of quitting now was absurd. That's when Phoebe delivered the ultimatum. She said they had talked about it and decided they couldn't watch me turn into someone they didn't recognize. If I insisted on continuing medical school, they would have to end our friendship. Maya agreed and said it would be better for everyone if we went our separate ways now rather than waiting for things to get worse. I sat there staring at them for what felt like forever. These were the people who had been my closest friends for over a decade. We had been through breakups, job losses, family problems, and every major life event together. Now they were asking me to give up my dream career to preserve our friendship. I asked them if they were serious. Phoebe said they were completely serious and had been thinking about this for a long time. Maya said they hoped I would make the right choice because they didn't want to lose me, but they couldn't watch me become someone they didn't like. I stood up from the table and put $20 down to cover my breakfast. I told them I couldn't believe they would ask me to quit something I had worked so hard for. I said if they couldn't be happy for my success, then maybe our friendship had already changed in ways I hadn't noticed. Phoebe called after me as I walked toward the door. She said I was proving their point by choosing medical school over them. Maya shouted that I would regret this decision when I realized how hard it was to make real friends in the adult world. I drove home and sat in my car in the driveway for about an hour. I kept thinking about all the times I had supported their decisions, even when I didn't understand them. When Phoebe decided to keep her baby at 19, I helped her pick out a crib and drove her to prenatal appointments when Jake was working. When Maya got engaged to her boyfriend after he cheated on her 2 years ago, I kept my mouth shut and helped plan her engagement party. I had never asked either of them to change their life plans for me. I had never made them feel bad about their choices or suggested they weren't smart enough or ambitious enough. The idea that I would become too good for them after graduating medical school was insulting and ridiculous. Later that evening, I got a long text message from Phoebe. She repeated everything she had said at the diner and added that they had given me a chance to do the right thing. She said Maya agreed with her completely and they would both be blocking my number if I didn't respond within a week with my decision to quit medical school. I called my older sister Jennifer to talk about what happened. Jennifer is 32 and works as a nurse practitioner. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she said Phoebe and Maya sounded jealous and insecure. She said real friends would want to see me succeed, not tear me down because they were afraid of being left behind. Jennifer reminded me that I had been talking about becoming a doctor since I was 12 years old. She said everyone in our family knew this was my dream and had watched me work incredibly hard to make it happen. She asked me why I would even consider giving that up for people who clearly didn't have my best interests at heart. I spent the rest of the weekend thinking about everything. I looked back at our recent conversations and tried to figure out if I had said or done anything that could be interpreted as condescending. I couldn't think of a single instance where I had made them feel bad about their lives or suggested I was better than them. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this was their problem, not mine. They were projecting their own insecurities onto our friendship and trying to make me responsible for managing their feelings. Instead of being proud of my accomplishments, they were trying to sabotage them. I also thought about what kind of friends would give someone an ultimatum like this. Real friends might express concerns or worries, but they wouldn't demand that someone give up their career goals. They definitely wouldn't threaten to end a 13-year friendship over something so petty. By Sunday night, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to quit medical school for anyone, including my oldest friends. If they couldn't support me in pursuing my dreams, then our friendship was already over. I'm supposed to respond to Phoebe's text by this Saturday. I plan to tell them both that I'm disappointed in how they handled this situation, but I'm not going to change my life plans based on their fears and insecurities. If they want to end our friendship over this, that's their choice. It hurts to think about losing people who have been such a big part of my life for so long. But I'm not going to let anyone make me feel guilty for working hard and achieving my goals. I've come too far to give up now. Update 1: A lot has happened since I posted about Phoebe and Maya demanding I quit medical school. Thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me with support. Your responses helped me realize I wasn't crazy for thinking their ultimatum was completely out of line. I sent Phoebe a text message the Saturday after my original post. I kept it simple and told her I wouldn't be quitting medical school, and if that meant ending our friendship, then that was their decision to make. I said I wish things could be different, but I wasn't going to sacrifice my career for anyone. Phoebe responded within an hour with a message full of curse words and accusations. She said I had always been selfish and only cared about myself. She claimed Maya had been right all along about me thinking I was too good for them. She ended the message by saying they were both blocking me and I shouldn't try to contact either of them again. I figured that was the end of it. I deleted their phone numbers and tried to focus on my surgery rotation, which turned out to be incredibly demanding. I was working 12-hour days at the hospital and studying for exams in whatever free time I had left. 2 weeks later, something happened that made me realize the situation was much more complicated than I had thought. I ran into Maya's younger brother David at the grocery store. David is 25 and has always been friendly with me. We used to hang out sometimes when Maya and I were in high school. David seemed uncomfortable when he saw me. He asked how I was doing and mentioned he had heard about the falling out with Maya and Phoebe. I said I was fine and asked how Maya was handling the wedding planning. That's when David got a strange look on his face. He asked if I knew Maya had applied to nursing school. I told him I had no idea and asked when that happened. David said Maya had been taking prerequisite classes at the community college for the past year and a half. She had applied to 3 different nursing programs and gotten accepted to one that starts this fall. I stood there holding a bag of groceries, trying to process this information. Maya had never mentioned anything about going back to school. She had never talked about wanting to become a nurse. During all our Saturday morning conversations, she had acted like she was perfectly happy with her insurance job. David looked around the store like he was worried someone might hear us talking. He said Maya had asked him not to tell anyone about nursing school because she wasn't sure if she was actually going to go through with it. She was nervous about being older than the other students and worried she might not be smart enough to handle the science classes. I asked David when Maya had started thinking about nursing school. He said it began about 2 years ago when her friend from work got into a car accident and spent several weeks in the hospital. Maya had visited her friend almost every day and became impressed with the nurses who took care of her. She started researching nursing programs and realized she met most of the requirements. David said Maya had been taking anatomy and physiology classes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. She told her fiancé and family that she was taking a yoga class. She had been studying for these classes the same way I had been studying for medical school, but she kept it completely secret from Phoebe and me. This conversation with David explained so much about Maya's behavior over the past few months. I started remembering little things that hadn't made sense at the time. Maya had been asking me questions about medical terminology and hospital procedures, but she always framed them as general curiosity. She had been more interested than usual when I talked about my clinical rotations and what I was learning. I also remember that Maya had seemed stressed during our last few Saturday meetings, but she always blamed it on wedding planning or work problems. Now I realized she had probably been stressed about keeping her nursing school secret while also dealing with classes and applications. David said something else that really bothered me. He said Maya had been talking to Phoebe about me for months before they confronted me at the diner. According to David, Maya had convinced Phoebe that I was becoming stuck up and condescending. She had pointed out examples of things I said or did that supposedly showed I thought I was better than them. David said he had heard some of these conversations when Maya was at their parents' house. He said Maya would complain that I always found ways to mention how hard medical school was or how much I was learning. She said I used medical terms in casual conversation to show off my knowledge. She told Phoebe that I acted like I was doing something more important than what they were doing with their lives. The worst part was that Maya had apparently been planning the confrontation at Murphy's Diner for weeks. She had convinced Phoebe that they needed to give me an ultimatum before I became too arrogant to maintain a friendship with them. David said Maya believed that if they didn't stop me now, I would eventually dump them for friends who were also doctors or other professionals. I asked David why Maya would do this if she was also pursuing a medical career. He said he thought Maya was afraid I would find out about nursing school and make fun of her for copying me. He said Maya had always been competitive with me, even in high school, but it had gotten worse as we got older. David also told me something that made me question everything I thought I knew about Phoebe's involvement in this situation. He said Maya had been feeding Phoebe information about me for months, pointing out things that Phoebe should be offended by. According to David, Phoebe hadn't independently decided I was becoming arrogant. Maya had convinced her to see my behavior in a negative light. This made me think back to the conversation at Murphy's Diner. Phoebe had been the one to bring up the ultimatum, but Maya had done most of the talking. Maya had provided all the specific complaints about my behavior. Phoebe had mostly just agreed with what Maya was saying. I left the grocery store feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. The person I thought was my friend had been systematically turning our other friend against me while secretly pursuing the same type of career I was pursuing. Maya had orchestrated the entire confrontation and then acted like she was just going along with Phoebe's concerns. I spent the next few days thinking about whether I should reach out to Phoebe and tell her what David had told me. On one hand, Phoebe deserved to know that Maya had manipulated her into ending our friendship. On the other hand, Phoebe had been willing to believe negative things about me without asking for my side of the story. I decided to send Phoebe a text message explaining what I had learned. I told her about Maya's secret nursing school plans and asked if she had known about them. I said I thought she deserved to know that Maya had been planning our confrontation for weeks and had been feeding her negative interpretations of my behavior. Phoebe responded the next day with a message that surprised me. She said she had suspected something was going on with Maya but hadn't been able to figure out what it was. She said Maya had been pushing her to be more critical of me for months, always pointing out things I said or did that could be interpreted as condescending. Phoebe said she had started to notice that Maya seemed to have strong opinions about my behavior, even when Phoebe herself hadn't seen anything wrong with what I was doing. She said Maya would bring up examples of my supposed arrogance during conversations when I wasn't even there. Phoebe admitted that she had gone along with Maya's plan because she trusted her judgment and didn't want to be the only one who couldn't see what Maya was seeing. She said she had been worried that maybe she was too close to the situation to notice that I was changing. Phoebe apologized for the way she had handled things at Murphy's Diner. She said she should have talked to me privately about her concerns instead of ambushing me with an ultimatum. She said she realized now that Maya had been manipulating both of us and using our friendship to make herself feel better about her own insecurities. I appreciated Phoebe's apology, but I wasn't sure if our friendship could recover from what had happened. Phoebe had been willing to believe the worst about me and demand that I give up my career goals. Even if Maya had influenced her thinking, Phoebe had still made the choice to deliver that ultimatum. I told Phoebe I needed time to think about everything. I said I was glad she had apologized, but I wasn't ready to go back to our regular Saturday morning meetings. I asked her not to contact me for a while so I could focus on finishing medical school. Phoebe said she understood and respected my decision. She said she hoped we could eventually work things out because she missed our friendship. She also said she was planning to have a serious conversation with Maya about her behavior. I haven't heard from either of them since then. I'm still processing everything that happened and trying to figure out how I missed the signs that Maya was being so manipulative. I keep wondering if there were other times when she had influenced situations or conversations in ways I didn't realize. Update 2: The situation with Phoebe and Maya has gotten even more complicated. I thought I was done dealing with their drama, but apparently they weren't done with me. About a week after my last update, I started getting friend requests on social media from people I didn't recognize. At first I ignored them, thinking they were just spam accounts. But then I noticed that several of these accounts had mutual friends with Phoebe and Maya. I accepted one of the friend requests out of curiosity. Within a few hours, this person had gone through all my old photos and posts, liking and commenting on everything. Their comments were weird and overly familiar, like they knew details about my life that I hadn't shared publicly. I looked at this person's profile more carefully and realized it was a fake account. The profile picture was obviously stolen from somewhere else, and all their posts were generic motivational quotes with no personal content. I blocked the account and started getting suspicious about the other friend requests. Over the next few days, I got messages from 3 different people asking me about medical school. They all claimed to be considering applying and wanted advice about the process. The messages were all similar and asked specific questions about my grades, test scores, and which schools I had applied to. One of these people asked if it was true that I had failed chemistry multiple times before getting into medical school. Another person asked if I was worried about being older than my classmates when I graduated. These were very specific details about my academic history that I had only shared with close friends. I realized that Phoebe or Maya, or both of them, were creating fake social media accounts to spy on me and gather information about my life. They were probably trying to find things they could use to embarrass me or make me look bad to other people. I made all my social media accounts private and blocked several suspicious profiles. But the messages kept coming from new accounts. Someone was putting a lot of effort into monitoring my online activity. Then something happened that confirmed my suspicions about who was behind this harassment. I got a message from someone claiming to be a nursing student at the same school Maya had been accepted to. This person said they had heard I was also in medical school and wondered if we could study together since we were in related fields. The message included details about Maya's nursing program that weren't public information. This person knew which semester Maya was starting and which clinical rotations she would be doing. They also mentioned that Maya had told them about her friend who was in medical school and thought we might get along. I knew this had to be either Maya herself or someone she had asked to contact me. No actual nursing student would reach out to a random medical student they had never met, especially with such specific information about another student in their program. I didn't respond to the message, but I started wondering what Maya was planning. Was she trying to re-establish contact with me through fake accounts? Was she gathering information to use against me somehow? Or was she just being nosy about what I was doing with my life? A few days later, I found out what Maya was really up to. My sister Jennifer called me and said she had received a strange phone call at her workplace. Someone had called the clinic where Jennifer works and asked to speak with her about her sister who was in medical school. The caller claimed to be from my medical school's administration office and said they were doing a background check on me as part of the residency application process. They asked Jennifer questions about my character, work ethic, and whether she thought I was mentally stable enough to be a doctor. Jennifer said the questions were inappropriate and invasive. The caller asked if I had ever had problems with drug or alcohol abuse. They asked if I had ever been violent or had anger management issues. They wanted to know if Jennifer thought I was honest and trustworthy. Jennifer told the caller she wouldn't answer those questions and asked for their name and contact information so she could verify they were actually from my medical school. The caller hung up immediately. Jennifer called my medical school the next day and spoke with someone in the actual administration office. They confirmed that they were not doing any background checks on current students and had never heard of the person who had called Jennifer. They said someone was impersonating their office and advised us to report it to the police. I knew this had to be connected to Maya and Phoebe. Someone was calling my family members and trying to gather negative information about me. They were pretending to be from my medical school and asking questions designed to make me look unstable or dishonest. I called my parents and warned them that someone might contact them with similar fake background check calls. My dad said he had already received a call like that the week before but had hung up when the questions started getting personal. He said the caller had seemed to know a lot about our family and my academic history. My mom said she had gotten a call too, but the person claimed to be from a potential residency program where I had supposedly applied. They asked her if she thought I was ready for the responsibility of being a doctor and whether I had ever shown signs of being arrogant or condescending toward people without medical training. The fact that they asked specifically about me being condescending confirmed that Maya was behind these calls. She was using the same accusations she had made at Murphy's Diner, but now she was spreading them to my family members and trying to make it seem like they were coming from official sources. I decided I needed to find out exactly what Maya was doing and put a stop to it. I asked David to meet me for coffee and told him what had been happening. David looked embarrassed and said he had been wondering if I would find out about Maya's behavior. David said Maya had been asking him questions about me and my family for weeks. She wanted to know where my sister worked and what my parents' phone numbers were. She had asked him if he knew which hospitals I was doing rotations at and whether I had mentioned any specific residency programs. David said Maya had also been asking other people from high school about me. She had contacted several mutual acquaintances and asked them what they thought about me pursuing medical school. She told them she was worried about me and wanted to make sure I was handling the stress okay. According to David, Maya had been spreading rumors that I was struggling in medical school and might not graduate. She told people that I had become arrogant and difficult to be around since starting the program. She suggested that maybe medical school wasn't the right fit for me and I should consider other career options. David said Maya had also been making fake social media accounts to follow my classmates and try to gather information about my academic performance. She had been commenting on posts from people in my medical school class, pretending to be a prospective student interested in the program. The most disturbing thing David told me was that Maya had been calling hospitals in our area, claiming to be my sister and asking about my clinical rotations. She had told them she was trying to coordinate family visits and needed to know my schedule. Some hospitals had actually given her information about when I was working and which departments I was rotating through. I realized that Maya's obsession with me had escalated far beyond what I had imagined. She wasn't just curious about my life or trying to make herself feel better about her own career choices. She was actively trying to sabotage my reputation and gather information she could use to harm me professionally. David said he had tried to talk to Maya about her behavior, but she insisted she was just looking out for me and making sure I wasn't getting in over my head. She claimed that medical school was too stressful for someone with my learning disability and she was trying to help me realize that before I made a huge mistake. David said Maya had also been in contact with Phoebe throughout all of this. They had been coordinating their efforts to monitor my activities and gather information about my academic progress. Phoebe had been reaching out to people from high school while Maya focused on my family and medical school connections. I asked David why he hadn't told me about this sooner. He said he had hoped Maya would stop on her own and he didn't want to get involved in the drama between us. He said he felt bad about it now and realized he should have warned me when the behavior first started. I thanked David for finally telling me the truth and asked him to let me know if Maya contacted him again. I said I was going to have to take legal action if Maya didn't stop harassing me and my family. That evening, I called the police and filed a report about the fake background check calls. The officer I spoke with said this type of harassment was becoming more common and could be considered stalking or identity theft depending on how far it went. I also contacted my medical school's security office and told them someone was impersonating their administration. They said they would send out a warning to all students and faculty about the fake calls and would report the incident to their legal department. I decided it was time to confront Maya directly about her behavior. I sent her a message through social media explaining that I knew about the fake accounts, the phone calls to my family, and her attempts to gather information about my medical school performance. I told Maya that her actions were constituting harassment and could have serious legal consequences. I said if she didn't stop immediately, I would be forced to get a restraining order and pursue criminal charges for stalking and identity theft. Maya responded within a few hours with a long message that was equal parts defensive and accusatory. She said she had only been trying to look out for me because she was worried about my mental health. She claimed that medical school was obviously too stressful for me and she was trying to help me realize that before I had a complete breakdown. Maya said I had been acting erratically and aggressively toward people who cared about me. She said my behavior at Murphy's Diner had confirmed her fears that I couldn't handle the pressure of medical school. She claimed she had been gathering information to present to my family so they could stage an intervention and get me the help I needed. Maya's message also revealed how jealous and bitter she had become about my success. She said it wasn't fair that I had gotten into medical school when I had struggled so much academically in the past. She said there were probably other students who deserved my spot more than I did. She ended the message by saying she would stop contacting my family and classmates, but only because she didn't want to deal with legal problems. She said she still believed I was making a mistake by continuing with medical school and predicted that I would either fail out or become a terrible doctor. I didn't respond to Maya's message. I saved screenshots of everything she had sent me and forwarded them to the police officer handling my harassment report. The officer said Maya's admission to contacting my family and gathering information about me would strengthen my case if I decided to pursue charges. I also forwarded Maya's messages to my medical school's security office. They said they would add her name to their list of people who were not allowed to contact the school or impersonate their staff. I haven't heard from Maya or Phoebe since then, and the fake social media accounts have stopped trying to contact me. I'm hoping Maya got scared enough by the threat of legal action that she'll leave me alone permanently. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because several people have messaged me asking what happened with Maya and Phoebe. The situation has finally reached a conclusion, though not the one I expected. About 3 weeks after my last update, I was finishing up my surgery rotation when one of the nurses at the hospital approached me during a break. She said someone had been calling the hospital asking questions about me and my performance during clinical rotations. The caller had claimed to be from a residency program where I was supposedly applying and said they needed references from staff members who had worked with me. They asked the nurse if I was competent, professional, and whether I got along well with other medical staff. The nurse said she had been suspicious because residency programs don't typically call clinical sites for informal references like that. She had asked for the caller's contact information and promised to have someone from administration call them back. The caller had hung up immediately. This nurse knew about the previous harassment issues because my medical school had sent out a warning about someone impersonating their administration. She wanted to let me know that the harassment was continuing and suggested I speak with the hospital's security department. Hospital security told me they had received similar calls about 3 other medical students over the past month. In each case, the caller had claimed to be from various residency programs and asked detailed questions about the students' clinical performance and personal behavior. Security said they suspected someone was either trying to gather information to harm these students' reputations or was pretending to be a residency program for some other fraudulent purpose. They had started recording the calls and were working with local police to track down who was making them. 2 days later, hospital security called me with an update. They had traced the phone calls to a prepaid cell phone that was registered under a fake name and address. However, they had been able to identify the person making the calls through security camera footage from the store where the phone was purchased. It was Maya. The store's security cameras had captured her buying the prepaid phone and several phone cards to add minutes to it. Security had also obtained records showing that the phone had been used to call not just my hospital, but several other medical facilities in the area. Hospital security had turned this information over to the police, who contacted Maya and told her to come in for questioning. According to the officer handling my case, Maya initially denied making the calls but eventually admitted to it when confronted with the security footage and phone records. Maya told police that she had been worried about me and wanted to make sure I was performing adequately in my clinical rotations. She said she was concerned that my learning disability might be affecting my ability to be a safe and competent medical student. Maya claimed she had only called a few places and had identified herself honestly when asked. However, the phone records showed she had made over 40 calls to different hospitals, clinics, and medical facilities over a 6-week period. She had used different fake names and claimed to represent various residency programs and medical organizations. The police officer said Maya's behavior clearly constituted harassment and stalking. She had been systematically calling my workplace and other medical facilities to gather information about me and potentially damage my professional reputation. This went far beyond being a concerned friend. Maya was charged with harassment, stalking, and impersonating official organizations. She had to hire a lawyer and ended up pleading guilty to reduced charges in exchange for agreeing to stay away from me and my family permanently. As part of her plea agreement, Maya had to pay a fine and complete community service hours. She also had to agree to have no contact with me or anyone in my family, either directly or through third parties. The restraining order will remain in effect for 2 years. Maya's nursing school found out about the criminal charges and conducted their own investigation into her behavior. They decided that her actions demonstrated poor judgment and character issues that made her unsuitable for a career in healthcare. Her acceptance to the nursing program was revoked. David called me after Maya's court hearing to apologize for not warning me sooner about her behavior. He said Maya had become increasingly obsessed with my medical school progress over the past year and had been making disturbing comments about me to their family. David said Maya had convinced herself that I didn't deserve to be in medical school and that she would be a better healthcare provider than me. She had been planning to expose what she called my inadequacies once she started her nursing program and could speak as a fellow healthcare professional. According to David, Maya had also been trying to get Phoebe to help her gather more information about me. She had asked Phoebe to reach out to our old high school teachers and classmates to find people who might have negative things to say about my character or academic abilities. Phoebe had apparently refused to participate in Maya's more extreme harassment activities. David said Phoebe had been uncomfortable with Maya's behavior for weeks before everything came to light. She had tried to talk Maya out of making the fake phone calls, but Maya had ignored her advice. David said Phoebe wanted to apologize to me for her role in the original confrontation at Murphy's Diner. She realized now that Maya had manipulated her into believing things about me that weren't true. Phoebe felt guilty for going along with Maya's ultimatum and wanted to make amends. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear from Phoebe after everything that had happened. She had been willing to believe Maya's negative portrayal of me and had delivered that ultimatum at the diner. Even if Maya had influenced her thinking, Phoebe had still made the choice to participate in that confrontation. But I also recognized that Phoebe had been manipulated by someone she trusted. Maya had been feeding her negative interpretations of my behavior for months and had convinced her that I was becoming arrogant and condescending. Phoebe had believed her friend was looking out for our group's best interests. I decided to meet with Phoebe one time to hear what she had to say. We met at a different coffee shop across town, not Murphy's Diner where everything had started. Phoebe looked tired and older than I remembered from our confrontation 3 months earlier. Phoebe apologized for everything that had happened at Murphy's Diner. She said she had been completely wrong to deliver that ultimatum and should have questioned Maya's motives from the beginning. She admitted that Maya had been influencing her opinion of me for months before the confrontation. Phoebe explained that Maya had been pointing out things I said or did and putting negative spins on them. Maya would tell Phoebe that I was showing off when I used medical terminology or that I was being condescending when I talked about my studies. Over time, Phoebe had started to see my behavior through Maya's lens instead of judging it for herself. Phoebe said she had gone along with the plan to confront me because she trusted Maya's judgment and didn't want to be the only one who couldn't see what Maya was claiming to see. She had been afraid that maybe she was too close to our friendship to notice that I was changing in negative ways. Phoebe told me she had started having doubts about Maya's version of events within a few days of our confrontation. She said Maya had seemed too eager to cut me off completely and had been pushing Phoebe to block my number and refuse any attempts I might make to reconcile. When Phoebe had suggested they should give me more time to think about their ultimatum, Maya had gotten angry and accused Phoebe of being weak and easily manipulated. Maya had said that if Phoebe wasn't completely committed to cutting me off, then maybe Phoebe didn't deserve to be part of their friendship either. Phoebe said that conversation had been a turning point for her. She realized that Maya was trying to control both of our relationships and was willing to threaten anyone who didn't go along with her plans. Phoebe had started to wonder what other situations Maya might have manipulated over the years. Phoebe had tried to distance herself from Maya after that, but Maya had kept calling and texting her with updates about what I was supposedly doing. Maya would send Phoebe screenshots of my social media posts and point out things that supposedly proved I was becoming arrogant and self-centered. When Phoebe stopped responding to these messages, Maya had accused her of betraying their friendship and choosing me over her. Maya had threatened to cut Phoebe off too if she didn't continue supporting the campaign against me. Phoebe said she had been relieved when the police contacted Maya about the harassment charges. She had been worried about Maya's increasingly obsessive behavior but hadn't known how to stop it or who to tell about it. Phoebe asked if there was any way we could rebuild our friendship. She said she missed our Saturday morning conversations and regretted letting Maya poison her opinion of me. She promised that she would never let anyone influence her perception of me again and would always come to me directly if she had concerns about our friendship. I appreciated Phoebe's apology and her honesty about how Maya had manipulated her. I could see that Phoebe genuinely regretted her role in what had happened and understood that she had been used by someone she trusted. However, I wasn't sure if I could trust Phoebe again after she had been so willing to believe negative things about me. Even if Maya had influenced her thinking, Phoebe had still chosen to deliver that ultimatum without giving me a chance to defend myself or explain my perspective. I told Phoebe that I needed more time to think about whether we could be friends again. I said I appreciated her apology, but I wasn't ready to go back to our regular meetings or act like nothing had happened. Too much damage had been done to our relationship for me to just forgive and forget immediately. Phoebe said she understood and respected my decision. She gave me her new phone number and said I could contact her if I ever wanted to talk or try to work things out. She said she would wait as long as it took and wouldn't pressure me to make a decision about our friendship. That conversation with Phoebe happened about a month ago. I haven't contacted her since then and I'm still not sure if I want to try to rebuild that relationship. Part of me misses having her as a friend, but another part of me questions whether someone who could be so easily manipulated would be a reliable friend in the future. I've been focusing on finishing medical school and preparing for residency applications. My clinical rotations have been going well and several attendings have offered to write recommendation letters for me. Despite Maya's attempts to sabotage my reputation, none of the harassment affected my actual performance or standing at the medical school. I graduate in 6 months and have already been invited to interview at several residency programs. My grades and clinical evaluations are strong, and I'm confident that I'll match into a good pediatrics program. Looking back on everything that happened, I'm glad that Maya's true character was revealed before I wasted more years maintaining a friendship with someone who was actively working against me. Her jealousy and manipulation cost her everything she claimed to want, including her chance to become a nurse. I learned that real friends support each other's success instead of trying to tear each other down. They don't deliver ultimatums or try to sabotage each other's careers out of jealousy or insecurity. Maya and Phoebe taught me what friendship isn't supposed to look like. I'm still hurt by what happened, but I'm also grateful that I found out who these people really were before I became a doctor and potentially gave them access to more personal information they could have used against me. Maya's harassment was disturbing, but it could have been much worse if I hadn't discovered it when I did. I don't regret standing up for myself or refusing to quit medical school to appease their insecurities. I worked too hard to get where I am to let anyone derail my dreams because of their own fears and jealousy. As for whether I'll ever reconcile with Phoebe, I honestly don't know. Maybe someday when enough time has passed and I can be sure she won't be influenced by toxic people again. But for now, I'm focusing on my career and surrounding myself with people who genuinely want to see me succeed. The restraining order against Maya is still in effect and I haven't heard from her since the court hearing. I hope she gets the mental health help she clearly needs and learns to deal with her jealousy and obsessive tendencies in healthier ways. This whole experience taught me that sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who try to hold you back the most. I'm grateful I had the strength to choose my future over their dysfunction and manipulation.